Well, we're gonna talk about
No,
another
no,
team
it's
that's
pretty
not
bad.
that terrible in the Pirates. Brad, you want to start us on that one?
You mean you just transitioned us flawlessly?
That was so flawless. The Pirates made a couple good offseason moves. There's a lot of things to be excited for in this team. I mean, they lost one player and it was Kevin Newman. That's a huge loss for them, obviously, going to the
No, they
Reds.
lost other
Um,
players. They just didn't matter.
yeah, they no, yeah, that's what I'm saying. The only like name that we know is that they acquired G-Man Choi from the Rays. They signed Carlos Santana, who is very underrated at this point. I think he's going to be very good. They signed Vince Velasquez, who they made a hype video for. They made an actual hype video for Vinny Velo, baby. They acquired Connor Joe, who I think has a lot of upside from the Rockies. And then you got Andrew Austin Hedges, 1 year, 5 million. And then you got Andrew McCutchen in his probably last season or one of his last seasons. You never know.
So he said, he literally said, "I came here." I think he said like, "I came here to win, not to retire." And I'm like, why did you go to Pittsburgh? I mean, you could have
They
gone to the,
told him
like the Braves. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I like that. That's why. But you didn't go there to win.
you
Like
went there to
Pittsburgh,
retire.
the Pittsburgh Pirates, they're not a terrible team, and we're gonna talk about that. But they're not gonna beat anyone else in the Central outside of the Reds.
Very low bar.
Yeah, I mean, their previous season went 62 and 100, tying with the Reds for last place in the NL Central. But there were some bright spots last season. Obviously, Brian Hayes led all third base and outs above average, was one of the best defenders in baseball, if not the best. Got snubbed probably. And you got the prodigy in O'Neal Cruz getting called up, breaking records with the exit velocity and
Former
the throws across
Dodger.
the diamonds. Former Dodger, as Steps mentions.
Maybe it's
We
Trey
don't have to talk
Turner.
about. um, there are some bright spots in this
Also,
lineup. I think.
Trey was drafted by the Pirates.
No
Really,
Padres.
No, he was
Padres.
drafted by the Pirates. He was.
Stas. Anyways, you had like a slightly late breakout of Mitch Keller. There are some bright spots in this lineup, and I think that we'll talk about them in a little bit. I think this is another team that has potential for a lot of breakouts just in this next season. So just going into the rotation, got Mitch Keller at the number one position. Roansy Contreras, who will have a breakout season this season. I'm convinced. Rich Hill, who's in his 65th season in the league. Vince Velasquez, he's going to eat innings, and then JT Britt Baker. It's not bad. It's a decent rotation. This is something to be more excited about for Pirates fans than in previous seasons. Brad, what do you think?
I don't think a lot about the Pirates. This is really the only time they'll ever cross my mind, unless O'Neal Cruz breaks the velo record again, the exit velo record. Their pitching rotation, I really like Mitch Keller. If you haven't checked out our Twitter page, you should do that. I do updates on Mitch Keller whenever he has outings. He didn't throw good the other day though. Dick Mountain, he's on his 14th MLB franchise. Vinny Velo, everyone takes a gamble on him, and this time it's the Pirates' turn. It's better than they've had in the past. That's what I say. It is getting better.
I mean, I definitely think what we talked about it, I think before the episode, this is their best lineup since 2018, I want to say, when they sold the first time.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I like the rotation. It's their best they've had in a while. I don't think it's anything crazy. I don't think it's out of this world, but I think it's a pretty decent like top to bottom rotation. It's probably a bunch of what do you got like 3 and 4 guys. Um,
Yeah, I think
so
there's some upside
there's upside. In their
in the very
bullpen,
top.
they got David Bednar, Robert Stevenson, Will Crow, Dwayne Underwood Jr., Jarlin Garcia, Chase DeJong, Yeri De Los Santos, and Jose Hernandez.
This team's a trade deadline team. They're gonna be like, I think this will be like a fairly solid team coming out of the gates. But like you'll have some crafty veterans and Rich Hill, Vince Velasquez. Maybe if they want to deal like Will Crow or David Bednar, if there's any value there. Some people could call it the trade deadline and be like, hey, what do you want for this? Because I think Rich Hill's gonna get dealt if he's even makes it to the trade deadline there. Maybe Vince Velasquez, someone will call, but it's a trade deadline team.
Definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the star power doesn't come in the rotation of the bullpen. It comes in the lineup. I feel like this team 1 through 7 is not bad. They are impressed. They've impressed me in the offseason. That the fact that they've built this lineup in one offseason. You got O'Neal Cruz leading off, obviously power bat, very good. You got Brian Reynolds, who will have a
Former
bounce back season.
Giant.
Steps. No. So Brian Reynolds obviously had a bit of a down season last year, but even in that down season, managed to be one of the best center fielders in baseball. So he will come back next year and be even better. Batting third, you got Andrew McCutcheon. You just gotta hope he stays healthy for a whole season. Then batting fourth, you got Carlos Santana, very good cleanup hitter. Batting fifth, you got G-Man Choi, another uh, you know, 4 spot batter that's batting the 5 hole. And then batting six is Brian Hayes, who I think will have an offensive breakout. It's just a mechanical adjustment, like we've mentioned in the past. He's got a launch angle problem. Batting seventh, you got Jack Sawinski, who hit 3 home runs off my Giants in one game. I hate this guy. And then batting eighth, you got Rodolfo Castro, and then batting ninth, you got Austin Hedges. The depth is not that good. On the bench, you got Kevin Plawecki, G1 Bay, and Connor Joe, and then Cal Mitchell. Um, the depth is not there, but the lineup does have some star power, and it honestly has some power. Like there is a serious home run threat in this lineup.
Honestly, this
Um,
1 through 7 is not horrible. You give it like a solid pitching rotation, like an actual pitching rotation with a half. If you give, okay, give me the Pirates lineup with the Reds rotation and bullpen, and this team has the ceiling of a wild card team.
I agree with
I
that.
agree. I agree. And I think that at this point, these teams are so bad and they've been bad for a little bit. They should just combine, become one. The Cincinnati
Um,
Pirates. Sorry, Stes, go ahead. I know you thought that was
um,
funny.
Would they be like
I,
the Pittsburgh Reds, but their logo's yellow?
Yes,
yes.
they're confused. Yeah.
Um, I honestly I like Rodolfo Castro too. I think he's just got a couple of things he needs to iron out. And then Austin Hedges isn't that good. And I definitely think Connor Joe could maybe take over for Rodolfo Castro. And if anyone gets hurt, I definitely think he has the potential to get into this lineup at some point. They went out, they got him in a puzzling move by the Rockies. They went out, Pirates went out and snagged him, so I definitely think he can be a helpful contributor to this lineup at some point. Again, and like we've talked about, we all love Cabrian Hayes. We just need that offensive breakout, and I think most of us can see it coming. O'Neal Cruz is going to be lights out, kind of that star-studded player that you want for your team, and then Brian Reynolds is probably going to get traded by the deadline if Pittsburgh is still sucking.
Yeah, they're gonna suck for a while. No, I'm kidding. Sorry, I just wanted to say that. I think
I,
honestly, it's not horrible. There's a formula here for 75 wins.
yes. And that's what I'm saying. It's possible. I think this one gets one of the more higher volatility ratings for me. I think it could go very badly. I think you could have a very bad season, Cruz. You saw obviously last year struggle with the breaking pitch. And you could get a down season or a very good season for Brian Reynolds, but he just doesn't want to stay, and you'd have to trade him there. There's a lot of things that could go wrong in this lineup. But there's a lot of things that could go right. A lot of breakouts that could potentially happen. So I think they have a ceiling very high, and not very high, but like a potential like 75, 76 win team ceiling. Are we in agreement on that?
Yeah, but it's like
That's fair.
it's like a really good 76. Like that would be good for them. 76 wins.
Yeah. Um,
Uh,
Says go ahead.
do you want to get into their main prospect?
I would love to.
Yes.
I like
It's
this. I really
Brad
like
loves
Andy
him.
Rodriguez. I really like Andy Rodriguez. And there's also another point I'd like to say with him is I think they're going to trade Henry Davis. You remember their first overall pick from 2021?
Yeah.
He was a guy who was projected to go at the end of the first round or the end of the top 10 of the first round. And he was a guy that was cheaper than slot value, which is why they took him. Um, I think Andy Rodriguez will be in the major leagues this year, probably on opening day, in all honesty. If they're smart, they'll do that. But it's the Pirates. So here we are. Um, Henry Davis could get shipped in the Brian Reynolds trade for a team that could really use a catching prospect. I can see that. I think that would get a really good haul. You could get a pitcher in return. Andrew Rodriguez, anyways, to the point why I like him. Switch hitting catcher. Does it sound familiar? Adley Rutschman. Hello. In 2022, his worst WRC plus was 151, and that was in AA. That's 51% above average. He had a 208 in his 6-game sample size in AAA. He was consistently over 10% walk rate, consistently under a 20% strikeout rate, and Zip's projected to put up a 3.3 F4 season as a rookie. Like a 750 OPS, like that's not horrible for a rookie catcher.
I think I'm sold on this guy. I think Brad has pitched very well. Endy Rodriguez not, but I mean, he's up in camp, right?
Yeah,
Do you know how he's doing in spring training?
I am pulling that up right now.
While you're talking about that, what are we feeling about Priester too? Do you think he'll probably be a mid-season call-up? He'll definitely be helpful to that rotation.
He lost a
That
little bit of
lackluster
value.
rotation.
Andy Rodriguez, just sorry to cut you off. 1,000 OPS through 8 at-bats in spring training so far.
Okay. Again,
He's pretty
so
good.
I mean, I definitely think this is a guy that we're probably going to be keeping an eye on. Maybe a potential rookie breakout candidate. I think I definitely agree if he comes up and performs at the high level that Brad thinks he's going to perform at. I definitely think they'll move Henry Davis. It's just a matter of if they can capitalize on Henry Davis' value. Which so far, honestly, their front office the past couple seasons hasn't been terrible. They need to stop trading pitchers to the Rays in exchange for lackluster players like G-Man Choi. But I mean, if they don't trade Henry Davis to the Rays, I think they're in good shape.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of people in the system. I think. I mean, in Tamar Johnson, I'm excited about that guy. Obviously, he's brand new to the system, so it's gonna be a couple of years before he gets called up. He's like literally our age, so it's gonna be a while before he gets called up to the pros. But there is a future to be excited for, and it's not just this assembled lineup right now. It is the future that we're looking towards too. And I think if they can build a semi decent team around this core that's coming up, I think you have a playoff contender. Just not this season.
Yeah. So I just wanted to go back to Quinn Priester. You had asked about him. He's kind of projected to be like a middle of the rotation guy for the Pirates. 4 to 5 on a contender.
Okay.
And I was reading more about Andy Rodriguez because it was right there. So I was like, might as well. He's posted 185, 195 pop times pretty consistently. I got ability to push the ball at the opposite field while keeping his hands inside to pull fastballs, which is a really good thing on the major league level, if you guys didn't know that. So yes, Quinn Priester, maybe this year, but probably 2024. But Andy Rodriguez 2023 for president. Are you guys ready
Brad,
to get into
why are you just really quick, why is Andy Rodriguez listed far lower than a lot of these other guys?
because he's only done it for like he had a huge breakout in 2022.
Yeah.
And I don't
What do
That's
you mean
fair.
by
look at
where? Do you mean like far lower is like in the total top 100 or?
No, like in the Pirate system. I mean, Henry Davis is listed as number one. I
Well,
feel like
Are you looking at their 23 list?
one moment.
Because he's 2. He's behind Termar Johnson.
Oh yeah, Andy made a little bit of a jump.
Okay.
Sorry, when I loaded up the roster, it auto filled me in on 2.
okay, so I look at Fangraphs prospect stuff.
Okay.
Termar Johnson's their 1, Andy is their 2, Henry Davis is their 3. And I agree with Termar Johnson should have been the number 1 pick last year. But the Orioles also made a very smart decision at Jackson Holiday. He also has ridiculously high upside. So there was no going wrong there. Andy Rodriguez just needs people don't know him. That's the thing. No one knows about Andy Rodriguez. Like Stavs, Tom, I don't know if you did. Like before I said his name, did you guys know who Andy Rodriguez was?
I mean, I knew a little
No.
bit, but I didn't
Nah,
know as much as you had said.
Stop it, Cap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew he was a big name in the Pirates organization. That's about it.
I guess
Yeah.
one more question before we go on. Does this guy primarily actually play catcher in his starts? Because he looks in his picture to have the build of more of a second base outfielder.
He does
So-
like it has him listed as catcher, second base, outfield on MLB.
Yeah.
But
He's like a smaller body type, so I think your model to see how he ages is seeing how Alejandro Kirk's body holds up this year. In all honesty, he's not as pudgy as him, but it's like the shorter, compactor frame.
Yeah.
um,
All right, I'm ready to get into my hot take predictions. I'm just kidding. They're not that hot. Don't worry.
All right, you
The
can go be
Pittsburgh
cold.
Pirates will be 73 and 89 next season. I have them on that higher end of the upside list, with their team MVP being Brian Reynolds before he gets traded, probably. Their most important player being O'Neal Cruz. Obviously was good last year, but you're kind of hoping that he becomes the star that everyone's hyping him up to be. Their Cy Young's gonna be Mitch Keller, although you could argue Roansy Contreras. And then their breakout player, we all talk about him, Brian Hayes, should have that offensive breakout where he learns how to hit line drives instead of ground balls because he hits a lot of ground balls.
I agree with you on 3 of those awards. For me, at standings, I had them going 67 and 95. Kind of lower than you. Still better than they were last season. MVP Brian Reynolds, Cy Young Mitch Keller, breakout Cabrian Hayes, and then most important I also have is Cabrian Hayes, because if this season he doesn't develop the bat tool along with his glove, then there's definitely a serious issue with his development.
Is it his development or the Pittsburgh Pirates?
His development within the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Fair enough. And they did sign him to that extension, so he's going to be there for a little bit.
Yep.
I had similar things. I think we're all in agreement that their most important players, or their MVP, sorry, is Brian Reynolds. Their Cy Young's Mitch Keller. Their breakout, I bought the Andy Rodriguez Kool-Aid.
This guy.
That's fair.
And then their most important, I said a combination of Cabrian Hayes and O'Neal Cruz because they need them to be good. Either one, ideally, but first of all would be Cabrian Hayes.
Okay. What was your record?
Oh, I had them at 71 and 91.
Yeah.
So I was the lower.
I could
Okay.
see them being like a spoiler type team. Like a team that could go into like the Mets in September and take 3 out of 4 in a really important series.
Yeah, I definitely could see that. This team, if everything hits properly, feels very Orioles-y to me. Like
I
you
don't think
get
the
like
pitching is
any.
as upper, like as high
I
ceiling.
agree with that, but like if like Andy Rodriguez comes up and if he can like perform at a high level, he'll be like an Adley Rutschman type catalyst to kind of push them to win a couple extra games.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of there's a significantly lower odds compared to the Orioles, but I do see where you're coming from. There's a lot of offensive upside. I just don't see the pitching, being at that same level.
I agree with that. I was thinking more offensively.
For their floor, I said their record from last year of 62 and 100.
I think that's just about right. I
That
don't think you can do much
feels
worse
fair.
than that.
I don't think they could do worse. I think they added too many pieces to be worse than that.
And we mentioned they kind of already have a high volatility. And we also mentioned like they could reasonably win 76 or so games. Like
Yeah.
it would take a bit of a hot streak, but it's foreseeable. Like it would take a good stretch of games. And in all honesty, I'm going to retract my previous statement, go right against it, and say I'd say a more consistent team throughout the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit worried about the pitching. It's very hard to win without pitching.
Yeah.
So if you don't have like that standout guy, it's gonna be hard to, win more than 70 games. But if they have at least 1 or 2 guys that stands out, it might be a 75 win season for them.
They have Vince Velasquez. He has a whole montage. Like,
And Rich Hill
Actually,
had a montage.
every
too.
signing they had a hype video.
Had a montage.
I mean, that's just proof that they're gonna be good. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, Tom.
To
Does
me,
your
that's
team
just
do
saying
montages?
that
No,
if
I mean, yeah.
They
if
do
your
when we
team-
trade them.
If your team doesn't do it, then your team is worse than the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I think that's true for 2 of the 3 of our favorite teams. So thank you all for listening to another part of our previews, predictions, and projections for 2023. Honestly, I was nervous coming into this episode because the Reds suck and the Pirates are weird, but I enjoyed that conversation. If you want to interact with us at all social medias will be in the link below. We will have the Cardinals and Brewers out in our next episode. Another really interesting episode considering how they've been over the past couple of seasons. We will see you all next time on the 4A Baseball Podcast. Peace.